Thank you. Grazie. Welcome. So, with that being said, the floor is all yours. You have about, like I said, a few minutes, 7, 8 minutes or whatever, and I will keep you up to 5 minutes. I'm just going to show you this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I would like to thank the FIU University and the Jean Monnet Center and its director, as well as the delegation of the European Union for organizing this discussion on one of the most important global challenges of our time, climate change. Well, both Spain and Florida, since we are in Florida, so I would like to highlight that both Spain and Florida are peninsulas, and we are all both defined by our relationship with the sea, and we are both on the front lines of the climate crisis, whether it's with the increasing intensity of hurricanes in the Atlantic or with the droughts and floods that we have recently seen in the Mediterranean region. So the message is clear. Climate is important, and we have to deal with it. Well, regarding Spain's position on the European Union climate change policies, so our climate policy is deeply rooted in the broader framework of the European Union. And I would like to highlight a few aspects of Spain's position. First of all, leadership within the European Union on climate policy. Second, the Green Deal, considered as an economic engine. Third, renewable energy, and Spain as a hub, European hub for solar and wind energy and green hydrogen. And finally, solidarity and social justice. So, first of all, leadership. So, Spain is not merely following a mandate from Brussels. We are actively shaping the most ambitious environmental project in history, the European Green Deal, which has been explained before, the European Union policy. So Spain strongly supports the European objectives and has made the energy transition a central pillar of its economic and environmental strategy. Spain benefits from exceptional natural conditions for renewable energy, particularly solar and wind power. And Spain has become one of the leading countries in Europe in the deployment of renewable energy capacity. Second, the Green Deal as an economic engine. Because for Spain, climate policy is not only about reducing emissions, it's also about opportunity. The energy transition is accelerating innovation in areas such as renewable energy, green hydrogen, sustainable mobility, and new industrial technologies. Spain sees this transformation as a chance to modernize its economy, strengthen energy security, and contribute to global climate solutions. And Spain, in this respect, is a European hub for green hydrogen and solar and wind energy. Spain has become a laboratory for the future. We currently produce over 50% of our electricity from renewable sources, wind, solar, and hydro. But our crown jewel is green hydrogen. Fourth aspect that I would like to highlight is solidarity and just transition. Because we have to take into account that that beyond the numbers and the targets, Spain believes that the transition must be both ambitious and fair. And this means ensuring that communities historically dependent on fossil fuels or traditional industries are supported during this transformation. When Spain decided to close the coal mines and coal-fired power plants, Spain didn't just lock the doors. We signed a just transition agreements involving governments, companies, and unions. And Spain is reinvesting in those specific communities, training miners to install solar panels or build wind turbines. Another aspect I would like to highlight is the transatlantic partnership. In Spain, as in Florida, water management is a national security issue. We are facing desertification in the south of Spain and extreme weather events across the territory. Our policy includes massive investments in water desalination, circular economy, and coastal protection. And this is an area where Spain and the United States, and specifically Florida, could lead together. Spain companies, leaders such as Iberdrola, Acciona, and Abengoa are already here in the US, building the infrastructure for the 21st century. The transatlantic bridge is now a green bridge. And finally, global cooperation. It's important to emphasize that climate change is a global challenge that requires global cooperation. And the European Union and Spain remain firmly committed to the objectives of the Paris Agreement, and we believe that international partnerships, particularly with countries across the Americas, are essential to achieving meaningful progress. So finally, as closing, Spain's position is clear. We believe in a Europe that is green, digital, and above all fair. The challenges are immense, but the cost of inaction is a price that we cannot afford to pay. As we say in Spain, no hay un planeta B, there is no planet B. Let us work together across the Atlantic to protect the only one we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving us a good overview of Spain's climate action. So next we have Raphaël.
Yes, thank you, Markus. So I would like to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about climate change and the action done by France as part of an act that resolve the situation. Belén said that the base of our action is based on a consideration, the fact that global warming is a global threat. So it needs a global action, and France is part of the international community and is not only the only actor in that fight. The situation, you know that now. The global warming is a global threat, so we have witnessed sea level rise because of the melting of glacier, of the ice cap in the North Pole. It creates a lot of consequences on the oceans, on the seas. There are more storms all around the world, more frequent, more destructive, with bad consequences on one life, but also on humans. And this is not, just a statement. These are facts delivered by the scientific community. It is really important to assert that, because a lot of people nowadays put that into questions. There is a consensus between the scientific community about the situation and the need to address it. So the political commitments started more than 40 years ago, and the first time I remember that we really took action, or at least we have decided to have a clear look on the situation, was on 1992 during the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. And the French president at that time, Chirac, made a powerful declaration saying our house, meaning the planet, is burning and we are blind to it. And this summit, in fact, was the start of the decisions of the international community to set goals and to take actions to reduce the greenhouse gases emission all around the world. So then you had the Kyoto Protocol, and later on the Paris Agreement. I think that you talked about this during the previous panels. During the Paris Agreement, it was a heavy burden, of course, for France to lead those negotiations, but we succeeded in having a deal at the international level, and that treaty set a landmark that remains our shared compass when developing and implementing a climate policy. And it was the case for all the countries, but not only. I will come back to that at a later stage. Those commitments and those precise commitments were translated into our laws, or different laws, and including at the European Union level, of course. Belén mentioned you the European Green Deal, which is a prime example, setting binding targets, such as reducing emissions by at least 55% by 2030 and achieve climate neutrality by 2050. Belén mentioned that also, for us too, climate policy is not only about reducing the emission of greenhouse gases, it's also a question about strategic economy. An economy built on fossil fuels means importing hundreds of billions of euros worth of coal, oil and gas, often from unreliable countries such as Russia. And the transitions that we have to apply to reduce our dependency from those countries are really important. And that's what we have started to achieve because of the geopolitical situation, the situation in Ukraine too. And we see right now with the situation in the Middle East that we are facing also the main problems. However, multilateralism today faces also a major crisis, complicating our diplomatic efforts, particularly due to shifts of the United States, including the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. Yet, the strength of the agreement lies precisely on its ability to transcend those traditional state-level diplomacy. It reflects also commitments from local governments, economic sectors, and civil society. And this modern multi-stakeholders approach to diplomacy is essential for addressing global phenomena like climate change. And despite setbacks, we must celebrate the continued engagement of local actors, such as Miami-Dade County, which remains a beacon of climate action. So, now, where are we today? Today, at the global level, the global emissions have increased by 62% between 1992 and 2022. So we are facing a bigger problem than previously. China today accounts for 29% of emissions, the United States accounts for 11%, and the European Union for only 7%. But the three entities accounts for 47% of the global emissions worldwide. So we need to act together, and that's the reason why we would like the US to come back to the table of negotiation to face this issue. The situation among European countries is quite different, but I have to say that France takes a heavy responsibility for the gas emissions. And we have seen that the main problem for us is transportation. And in that particular sector, we have been unable to reduce the gas emissions, and this is a particular problem. So this is the reason why we really counted on a policy from the European Union, also trying to regulate the automotive sector. And on transportation, the EU initially aimed to ban thermal vehicles by 2034, but adopted a pragmatic approach. while maintaining a 90% CO2 reduction target by automakers by 2035 instead of 100%, the EU just decided to balance its climate goals with industrial sovereignty. So you have to take into account that there are also different interests that we have to balance. And this flexibility addresses the competitive pressure from players like Tesla and BYD from China, while safeguarding jobs in our automotive industry and continuing to drive down emissions. So all in all, the European Union has succeeded in reducing by 30% its emissions of greenhouse gases, while I said that worldwide it was increasing, and we are still, of course, committed to work on that particular sector with the constraints that we have, as Belén said, to maintain the growth of our economies also, but with a clear mindset to achieve the ecological transition and to fight global warming. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. And last but not least.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me today. It's always a great pleasure for me to visit the FAU and taking part in such an amazing panel with great panelists. As far as the EU climate strategy, I think that it's important to underline that Italy remains committed, strongly committed, to achieving the Union's climate neutrality objective by 2050. As mentioned by you at the beginning of this conference, of course, we might think that the objectives are a little bit reduced in terms of scope. But if we take into consideration the path that all the European Union was able to follow with all member states, starting from 2015, when the EU acceded the Paris Agreement, up to 2019, when the Green Deal was launched, and later on with the Repower strategy, the Fit for 55 package, and until the very last one, I had to write it down, the so-called EU target for 2040. That means the achieving the reduction of 90% of the emissions as compared to the level of 1990. The path has been a very impressive path. And of course, the last Environment Council at the European level decided to readjust this objective. And Italy was one of the advocates for this readjustment. Because of course, the approach of Italy is that of pragmatism, dialogue, and of course, as also General Trapp mentioned, flexibility. Because what Italy really thinks that is the importance that decarbonization doesn't mean deindustrialization. So this is a key aspect for Italy's agenda in European Union. So a flexible and adaptive path is really fundamental for Italy. So a balance between important reduction goals that remains compared to a sort of smoothing of potential economic downside and social downside of this important path. I think that today is important to underline that Italy, during the last negotiation for the change of the European climate law, was a strong advocate, together with other 10 European member states, for a sort of, we would say, a package that goes into the direction of a more balanced and pragmatic agreement to safeguard the competitiveness of the economy at the European level. So Italy saluted the proposal to take into consideration these aspects in making a balance between the climate ambition and the protection of competitiveness. And so we were pretty much satisfied that last November, the Environment Council decided for a a smooth change in this objective of the 90% of reduction, targeting the 85% plus a 5% of international credit that can be derived from development projects with third countries. This is also very important because it explains how the climate agenda may also be a tool for external relations of the European Union. So I think this is another important aspect. To sum up with the Italian perspective, it's also important to underline that the role of the biofuel was strongly underlined in this last European Council of November 2025. Italy is a strong advocate of the role of sustainable biofuel, and so we really welcome the conclusion of the European Council in this direction, and also the importance of the natural absorption. So the power of forests, investing in finding new green areas such as forests or trees areas to naturally absorb the emissions. So in a nutshell, I would conclude by saying that, of course, the economic and social sustainability is important and is part of this path that will hopefully lead us to a net zero emission, but also that will not compromise the technological neutrality, which is also very important for my country and for Europe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You were actually, you had more time, but that's good because that means we have more time for question and answers and a discussion. About at least 15 minutes, if not 20 minutes. Can I just ask you, so I think you painted a very good picture of everything from the national level, right, to the subnational, to the global level. And I liked your intervention as well about sort of exactly the more recent discussions, right, about the need to remain on the one hand for the Europeans to remain competitive or, jumpstart the economic and industrial base of Europe, which is of course under a lot of pressure, right, given the trade wars from the US, given China's pressures, right, on the European economies. And sort of the reality that environmental protection is also, as we said this morning, not just important for each of our nation's national security, but also for the regional and the global security. That being said, I want to get to your questions, so please don't be shy, ask your questions in a second, but I want to pose a question to all of you, just sort of get a warm-up question, and that would be sort of with regards to your individual countries' needs and focuses in the environmental policies. What are your country's biggest, where do you see their biggest opportunities in this area of environmental climate change mitigation, and what are the biggest challenges? If you can, sort of give us a little bit of an impression to get a more individualized country view. So what are the biggest challenges and what are the biggest opportunities you see for Spain, for France, and for in the years to come? Whoever wants to.
Yes, well, I think we think that there are many opportunities in this sector because it fuels innovation in this area. So we see development, also economic development. So we think that everything that is done for green transition, we think that it's very important for economic development and new technologies in this area and digital economy. And the challenges are, we need, we have to become, the European Union objectives are a challenge, how to implement them as soon as possible. So especially the latest requirements try to be at least 90% from without fossil fuel. So these are challenges, but there's we have the will to implement the European Union policies and to advance in this area. It's a priority for the government. It's a first priority, the Green Deal and its implementation. So we are on that. The government is there. It's a priority. So they will do whatever it takes to implement the European Union policies.
Thank you, thank you. And it seems like Spain has also been able to profile themselves as a leader, right, among European nations in terms of the ecological and just transition. Pedro Sanchez's government is certainly known, right? If you've been to Spain recently, you've seen, the amount of wind turbines and sort of the renewable energy that's really significant. Thank you.
So for us, I think that the most important opportunity that we have is to showcase the blueprint that we have in the decarbonization of electricity production. So I'm touching a sensitive topic among the European Union member states, because I'm talking about the nuclear energy, and not only the member states. But thanks to that technology, we have succeeded in decreasing by more than 40% our emissions regarding this sector. I think it's really important again to consider that it's not just about climate for us, it's about reclaiming control of our energy future and protecting our economy from external shocks. Within the EU, France advocates for a balanced and resilient energy mix, combining the reliability of nuclear energy with the rapid expansion of renewable energy to ensure security of supply in a fully decarbonized system. It leads me to the biggest challenge that we have. The biggest challenge is that for some technologies, and including the solar panels, we are still dependent from different countries, especially for the components and the raw materials that they are needed to produce that kind of products. And it's really important for us that we secure supply from also different actors. I know this is also a consideration from the US, and there we can act together just to diversify our supply chain and to build a real industrial European industry regarding renewable energies.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you very much. Well, I would say that the most important challenges that Italy faces as far as the EU climate law is concerned is that making sure that the transition towards the net zero emission remains a just and socially fair transition. This is very important for Italy. And but all in all, I think that the opportunities are far more than the challenges. And by these aspects, I completely agree with Consul General Trapp when he mentioned the idea of a sustainable supply chain and a diversified supply chain. This is very important for us. And I think that the framework in which we move in Europe did a lot over the last years to go into this direction. For instance, the Net Zero Industry Act or the Critical Raw Material Act are two legal instruments that allows us to, from one side, foster those industries that are sustainable, those industries that can fulfill a technological gap with other geopolitical blocks, and will allow us to have a more secure and diverse and sustainable supply. So this is probably the most important opportunity that we face, especially during these times. So yes, all in all, I think that there are a lot of challenges, but probably more opportunities than challenges.
Well, grazie. I think that's a wonderful sort of picture that you together paint, because if I may say so, we have a center-left government here in Spain, right? A centrist government in France and a center-right government in Italy, but they all, right, pull at the same goal of, the ecological and just transition in Europe. So I think thank you very much. We have still at least 10 to 15 minutes left for question and answer. So please, if you have any questions or any comments, this is your chance to ask them. Please go to the microphone, introduce yourself very quickly, and then ask your question or pose your comment succinctly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your discussions, to the three of you. This question is personally to Belén. I'm Spanish, and I've worked for the Commercial Trade Office of the Spanish Consulate. So this question is in regard to Spanish renewable energy investments. To what extent do you see Spanish renewable energy investments in the US serving as a driver for deeper transatlantic cooperation on climate change and environmental security?
Yes, well, there are several companies that are already investing here in the US and that they are leaders in renewable energy, solar and wind energy. For example, Iberdrola, Acciona, and Abengoa. So they are here in the US and they are shaping this, they are contributing to shape this policy for in climate with renewable energy and contributing to the goals for the planet. So I see more cooperation in this field with Spanish companies that are leaders in this area. So they are already here, and I see more cooperation in the future and to sustain cooperation and an increase in the future.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. My question was out Thai ambassador. So I believe in your speech you mentioned biofuels. So for me, I want to know, how is Italy trying to achieve these biofuels? Like, what type of research is going into it, and how are you guys testing and ensure that it's not only sustainable but it does work better than traditional fuel?
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting question and allows me to go a little bit more in depth because you mentioned correctly, Italy is putting a lot of effort in developing the biofuel, and especially not just theoretical studies on the importance of biofuels, but we really trying to bring them more and more on the highways, on the streets, so that real consumers, cars and automotive industries might follow this new path. We really think that biofuel have a great potentiality in terms of emission reduction. So Italy is investing a lot, not only in the production of biofuel, but also in the distribution network. So yes, basically, we think that in the upcoming years, a good network of distribution of biofuel on main highways at a national level will be beneficial for the climate achievement of the goals that we fixed. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ethan. I'm a student of both Dr. Thiel and Dr. Washington. And my question is directly talking about the automotive industry and electric vehicles. Mr. Montrasio, you mentioned that decarbonization cannot equal deindustrialization, but it appears in the automobile industry, we see that Tesla and BYD, as was mentioned, are seeping into the markets and taking every opportunity to replace carbon vehicles that rely on gasoline, and so on and so forth. So my question really is, what is being done in the European Union to harness and bolster the domestic electric vehicle markets? What are we doing to take existing automobile companies and help them transition into the electric market?
Mr. Draghi, with a hard question.
Well, I don't know if I may answer, but later as we're all into the automotive sector, we may share the importance of this question. Well, of course, you raise a very interesting point. I think that flexibility is the key point to understand all the policies that are driven from a European point of view. Because of course, automotive industry is such an important industry for our economy, not only for Italy, but for the European Union itself. And we, of course, we have a lot to do to invest more in the electric vehicles. But I think that yes, the flexibility towards that new model is something that is guiding our action at the moment. Of course, we cannot go fully in that direction because the industrial model is still connected to the traditional fuel. But probably, as I mentioned before, investing in new kind of fuels such as biofuels, and of course, without forgetting to reach the goal to invest more in the electric vehicles, is something that will gradually lead us towards this future without compromising the important competitiveness of the automotive industry in Europe. Thank you. I don't want to
Thank you for your question, because as I said, this is a really important one, because the transport sector is the largest contributor to national emissions, but also to European emissions. And passenger cars accounts for about half of transport emissions. So this is really needed that we address that, either by biofuel or by electric cars. And regarding electric cars, what we want to achieve at the European level is to develop the industry. But of course, as Giacomo mentioned, there are some reluctance from different constructors because yes, they see that there is a lot of competition, as I mentioned with Tesla and BYD, but we can count on different programs of investment from the European Union, but also at the national levels, try to boost the industries and to construct different products, different components to those cars to help the car makers to do much better. As I said, we have reduced our ambition in that sector, but it's just temporarily. And we have seen that also the market is really important and what the people want for their transportation. But the geopolitical situation currently, we're going to witness an increase of the price of the gas, and perhaps it will help to change the mind of the car owners.
Thank you very much. You talked a lot about national initiatives, but it's more of an open question. Do we need more to focus on national initiatives, or do we need a more broader European action? Which one should be the priority?
Of course, both. I mean, the European Union is a tool to trigger, in fact, the action of the European countries, and to put them at the same level of ambition. So the action of the European Union is really important. Also with the help that they can provide financially, also, but also legally. So it's really needed that we have the European Union to help us, to raise our level of ambitions. But of course, at the end of the day, it's going to be at the national level that the authorities have to take action in order to curb climate change.
A lot of questions, so I'll make mine quick. Hi, I'm Rita Chitanico. I'm here at FIU, as I'm shorter than there. And I am the vice chair of our UNESCO chair on water security, and I'm responsible for all of our education programs. And so I guess I have a question and a comment, maybe a suggestion. So it seems like as we're working on these new technologies, and we have to have the consequential workforce of the future, right? So one question is, are your countries designing some innovative programs for workforce development for the future? Because we're actually thinking about programming of our own. And could this be a really great way for collaboration in terms of our universities and our programs and developing in concert some of these ideas for workforce of the future? Because as you said, we all need national workforce, but we also need a global workforce. So it seems like it could be a win-win and less political. But I was wondering if you had any ideas of innovative programs or cooperation.
Well, yes. I think that that's a very good idea, cooperation with universities and companies, and maybe yes, we can also think about this and with the trade office and give also this information, talk with the companies that deal with these issues, and maybe put them in contact with universities, because I mean there's also research in universities, there are projects that come from universities that maybe can be of interest for companies. So I think it's a very good area to explore for future cooperation.
Yeah, I was going to say, having you all in Miami is a great way for cooperation with our restaurant.
And you know, all these most larger European states have national American business chambers in Miami that are very active, and they have also very innovative job postings. So I think they really concretely implement the transatlantic knowledge transfer.
Hi, my name is Esmeralda Avila, and I had a question mostly for France. I'm also a student of Professor Washington. I had a question mostly for France, but this can extend to any of the other countries. So you mentioned that the United States needs to work with you to tackle the global crisis, but considering that the United States only takes up 11% of the emissions, like you stated, and China takes up 29%, I was just really curious to see what you were doing to work with them, or if you even made attempts to work with them.
So we consider that China is really responsible in the international stage regarding their ambition to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And they have taken commitments in the framework of the Paris Agreement. But also, I think that you just touched about this. It's also important to understand that in all the interaction, including trade interactions that we have with our different partners at the European Union level, we set different ambitions also to convince those partners to set different goals regarding the reduction of the greenhouse emissions. So yes, we do work with China, and we do trust them in terms of the ambitions that we have set.
We're close to the end, but if you don't mind, we have a couple of more students' questions for you, and then we can conclude 5 minutes.
Hi, so this question, my name is Michelle Grover, I'm a community member and I work in sustainability. This question is mostly for France. You spoke about an increased focus on nuclear power as more shift towards a different source of renewable energy. We're actually a few hours away from the Fukushima Daiichi anniversary of that huge accident. It's only second to Chernobyl. I'm wondering if there are plans within the rollout of this new nuclear energy plan or whatever it is for safety, as we obviously we've had some really huge lessons to learn in the past. So, thanks.
Yes, I would say that in all sectors the zero risk doesn't exist, and that's the reason why for that kind of industry, including also different other industries, you have strict safeguards in order to work and to create, nuclear plants and to operate them. In that goal, there is an international organizations in Vienna, and they are producing, different norms for the nuclear countries to respect in order to produce electricity in a safely manner, but also to try to prevent nuclear proliferation, which is also really important in that sector. So yes, we can face different risks, but with the norms that are really strict and very efficient, I think that we can prevent a lot of incidents.
Is that also considering that there's more of weaponization of nuclear that's kind of coming out of France in the last few weeks?
Yeah, there is a strict there is a strict separation between the nuclear industry and production of electricity and the use of nuclear weapon, or at least our dissuasion rhetoric regarding the nuclear weapon. And for that, Also, there are international rules, and so we are particularly firm on the fact that we don't want those type of weapons to proliferate. So for us, there is a strict division, about this. And the international agreement on nuclear power is conditioned on the fact that the countries that want to enter into nuclear energy abide themselves by renouncing about the acquisition of nuclear weapons.
Thank you for your time. My name is Fabian. Mr. Trapp, sorry for keeping you busy, but I think my question is related to you because you brought the point that maybe ask my question. So I think it's clear in this panel that the environmental policies and the climate challenge is a priority for every European country and the EU as a whole. However, the crisis made us realize that Europe cannot be safe if the whole world is not safe when it comes to environment. That means partnerships. So how can you manage to advance the climate goals and a safer environment when the US, for example, in this administration is not that committed into climate policies? Yeah, and I can also link to every one of you because
for sure I will be short on that because I already mentioned that the new way we do multilateralism nowadays is really important because this is not only, and especially for global issues like climate change, those are global topics and they have to address not only by governments but also by local governments, by private sector, by civil society, and all together we have to act responsibly in order to achieve the goals that we have set. So this is the reason why I mentioned, for instance, the Miami-Dade County, which is really active regarding reducing its impact on climate change. And we have to also try to convince the different companies of the private sectors, all the local governments, to stay strong and firm despite the position of the federal government.
Yes, I mean, this is the question. We need global cooperation because what it's doing the EU is very good. It will be very good, for our countries. The climate in our, certain things, the climate in our countries, especially the environment. But for global numbers, for the ozone layer, for other things. Whatever is done in the EU is nothing if the other continents, the other countries don't follow the same. So usually many of these things are negotiated by the European Union because there are European Union competences and they are in charge of cooperation with other countries and other blocs. And so these are all the different summits and meetings for the implementation of the objectives of the Paris Agreement, and the next meeting in Brazil. And that it's important. So that's very important for the global goals to have global cooperation. This is one of the factors. And we are on this, and we are pursuing this, and exerting the European Union and the other countries is exerting the pressure on this. There are different views from other stakeholders, but what we negotiate, and there have been many, there has been progress made in the past. So I think that we are advancing in the right direction, although some countries go slower, others faster, but I think overall everybody is advancing in the right direction.
Thank you.
Ventura, in 1 more minute, please.
Yes. I'll very much generalize my question. Hello, my name is Mary Gomez, and I'm a student here studying international relations. And Mr. Trapp, you spoke about the necessity and reliance on countries for materials, and it kind of got me thinking about currently what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz and the civil discourse that we can be expecting over the next couple that has started in days with civilians. So I wanted to talk about, I want to ask about when civilians they receive this kind of discourse, how do countries kind of work out de-escalating that while also staying on track with climate change justice and going towards clean energy? I should rephrase my question if that makes sense. Yes, okay. So we can assume with what's going on, there's going to be a lot of civilian discourse. How do governments kind of hear what people are saying and how there's danger as well as keeping on track with climate action goals? Specifically, with the oil prices raising, kind of balancing the two things.
No, I mean, it's just what I read from, I mean, you would know better, but the European Union, the European Commission, which is sort of the guiding executive body of the European Union, in the wake of the oil price spike now, asked, I think, member state countries, right, to really support member state countries in supporting more so-called eco energy communities. And those are local producers like you and me, your families that have solar panels on their roof, and they can then feed back, right, produce energy independent by themselves, and can feed them back into the national, the local, and regional grids. So that's something where the EU has actually possibly reacted very quickly in a number of days and promoting that. That's just one example.
At the national level in France, we are in a tricky situation because of the political turmoil. It has been very difficult for us to put a budget, and we don't have room of maneuver, to try to decrease the tax that we impose on gas. So the government can't help, in fact, the car owners regarding that. So this is the reason why the Ministry of Finance has decided to convene the producers, the distributors, the oil producers, gas distributors in France, and ask them to make an effort and to limit the rise of the prices. But at the national level, frankly, this is the only thing that we can do. At the international level, France and the President Macron has decided to step up his military position to send a flotilla in the Mediterranean Sea and try to, defeat the blockade of the Hormuz Strait set up by Iran. So this is an ongoing process, and we'll see what's going to happen with that. But in any case, I just want to state that we want the conflict to de-escalate and, of course, to end.
If I can add something, yes, what you have said. One of the policies, the EU policies, member countries' policies, is to diversify the sources of energy and to have more green energy. But also precisely one of the objectives of the Green Deal is also strategic autonomy. It's an important aspect. The concept of autonomy and strategic autonomy also with the energy and with the sources for energy, so that not to depend on producers, foreign producers. So we have to take into account that oil will finish maybe in a few decades, gas less. It will last maybe 100 or 200 years. Oil there will be less. EU will be less European, less dependent on oil and gas, but maybe African countries will be more developed in the future, more middle class, and they will use more oil in the future. But at the end, these are energies that will finish in quite soon. But still, one of the objectives of the EU is also the concept of autonomy and strategic autonomy, and this also deals with the sources of energy and this objective of having more sources that are green, but also that can be produced by our own countries, so that not to depend from foreign countries' producers of energy.
Thank you. I think you covered really a lot. So.